The Ranch That No One Would Buy by L Ron Hubbard. He had the stillest brown eyes God ever put into a man. They were the first things anyone noticed about him. But further inspection revealed that the rest of him had the same quality as his eyes. He was quiet. His spurs didn't jingle. His belt didn't creak. Mounting or dismounting, there was never a sound from his saddle. His horse followed his master's example, and nobody ever remembered hearing the little black pony so much as whicker. He came into Faro with the heat of the day, never making a sound. His eyes were on his back trail before he entered the town, very quietly on his back trail, as though he was afraid that a breath from him would call down upon him all the demons from hell. He walked the black pony silently down the dusty street, sitting his saddle as though he expected a bullet in his back. He looked at the signs of the shabby cow town, reading them one by one and still watching the few men in sight, and from his look, he would have showed no surprise if every one of them had whirled about to begin shooting at him. He carefully surveyed the Silver Dollar Saloon and hotel, and though he seemed to give no direction, the little black pony put his decision into action and approached the hitch rack there. There were idlers on the porch with their ever-curious stares. They made him uneasy. He did not do more than drop the reins. The black pony understood. For everyone else, the steps of the Silver Dollar creaked. But not for him. For everyone else, the porch groaned under the slightest weight, but not his. For everyone else, the swinging doors sang a dismal dirge, but they were still as he pushed through them. The clerk looked up with a start. He had heard nobody approach, and long residence in the Silver Dollar had frayed his wearied nerves. But he was instantly at ease. There could be no menace in so still a man. The clerk laid down his pen and rubbed his bald head, leaving a bluish streak of ink there to match the real veins. He eyed his prospective guest, adding him up as well as he could. This man was young, and though he might have been a puncher, his face was not windburned. The texture of his skin was delicate, almost like a girl's. And his hands on the desk were long-fingered and white. He was not from this part of Texas, nor were his tailored shirt and chaps Californio. The clerk was puzzled.
You come far, stranger?
Far enough,
said the other, in a smooth, quiet voice which bore more than a hint of a drawl. He smiled uncertainly.
Have you a room, sir?
Number 5, cash in advance. Sign here,
parroted the clerk, and when the other had signed, he slewed the ledger around and devoured the neat signature.
Jerry Delaney, huh? You didn't fill in no town.
Make it Pecos.
Ho-ho! I read your brand now. Sure. Old Bab Thompson ripped me about you. It'd have to be a stranger that'd buy his spread. The local capital's got better sense.
Two shabby men across the lobby grew conspicuously quiet at the mention of the names.
You going out today?
After Stardust has a rest, what is the matter with the ranch, sir?
Stardust. Now ain't that a purty name for a hoss?
Is there something wrong with the rockin' tea?
Said Delaney, his anxiety almost hidden by his slow drawl.
You going to be around for a couple hours? I'll tell the county clerk you're in town and you can fix up your papers. How come you thunk of a horse name like that?
All the while he spoke, he stared at the men across the room, still conspicuously quiet. Delaney turned and looked at the pair. Uneasily, he hitched his saddlebags up on his arm. His hand was shaking a trifle.
Number 5, you say? I'll go up, if you don't mind, sir. And then walk around to see Stardust.
Make yourself at home.
Delaney walked up the rickety steps and put his saddlebags in the room. He came down. The steps did not creak, and passed the clerk. He stopped for an instant when he saw that the lobby loungers had left. He shivered slightly and then went on out. The clerk had watched him leave with mixed emotions. It seemed a shame for such a good-looking young fellow to walk into a mess like the rocking tea. And at the same time, Lush Wilson, the clerk, had very little respect for a man that showed his lack of nerve. He had not much time to ruminate. Smoke Lassiter banged through the swinging doors, boot beats loud and face clouded. He swung to the bar and stamped his foot down on the rail. He knocked a glass to the floor by way of calling Lush Wilson's attention. Like trained hounds upon their master's heels, the two shabby individuals sidled up behind Lassiter. Lush Wilson made haste. Smoke's red-rimmed eyes, small for his big face, were danger signals. Lush set out the bottle.
So, he got here.
Said Lassiter, immediately throwing off a drink.
What kind of looking gent is he?
He's,
Began one of the men.
Shut up!
He's just a kid. There ain't no percentage in killing kids, Smoke.
Lassiter's hand dived for his gun, and stayed there tense.
Why, you blabbermouth coyote? Who the hell are you calling a killer?
Nobody. But he ain't no gunman. He's just a kid. He calls his hoss Stardust. And his hands aren't like yours and mine. They're,
Stardust. So that's the kind of gent that bought the rockin' tea? This is easy. If Bab Thompson didn't have the guts to stay and face me, this kid'll run a mile on side of me. Set him up, Lush. It's on your house.
Lush set him up obediently.
I don't know why you don't just buy the rockin' tea.
Now, who's got $70,000 in these times? Since that damn land office crowd made such a smell, guys gotta be careful. First thing you know...
It'll be a hanging offense to kill a man. It's your game, Smoke, not mine. But it seems a kind of a shame. He's such a pretty kid.
Oh, I won't kill him. Not unless he gets stubborn. Now, what good would he be to me dead? He's got to have enough life in him to sign papers, ain't he? And I'll make it legal, too. I'll pay him the $70,000 after I get
Look,
that...
Smoke, I know what you can do, and I'm in this thing as deep as you are because of the cash I advanced. But I'm asking you not to kill this kid. Leave him alone. I'll take my loss on
Look,
the money.
you go chicken-hearted on me, Wilson, and the wolves will be having a good time with your corpse. Now, this country is getting civilized. Another few years and we won't have pickings like these. Now, come on, Eddie. We'll look over his baggage. Keep your eye peeled, Slewfoot, in case the marshal looks in. What he don't know won't hurt him.
Smoke, with Eddie at his heels, went thunderously up the creaking steps. He strode into number 5 and picked up the saddlebags. With fingers which were clumsy everywhere except around a gun, he undid the silver buckles. A letter came to light, and Smoke moved to the fly-specked window to read it.
Gerald Delaney, New Orleans. Dear son, I'm only too glad to have this chance to help you. The enclosed draft for $65,000 gives you a little leeway in your deal. When you get everything set, I'll come down and see you. Sorry about your bad luck in New Orleans. My very best, Mother. Huh. postmarked St. Louis. Old Bab must have come down on his price after he lit out.
He moved back to the saddlebags and replaced the letter. For several minutes, he rummaged through the neatly packed clean clothes. At last, a card in the very bottom came to his attention. He stared at it and then gave a booming laugh. Thunder in his throat, he clattered down into the lobby and confronted Lush Wilson.
No wonder that kid's scared stiff.
Chortled Smoke. Wilson looked at the card and blinked.
No wonder.
He whistled. Eddie and Slewfoot peered at it and giggled in chorus.
He had plenty of reasons for running away from New Orleans. Better man than him having stayed to face that music. I thought he looked nervous when he came in and didn't think Bab had explained this deal to him. And
Now look how he's thumbed it. I bet he's put in plenty of time and put out plenty of sweat studying this thing.
He read it aloud.
Jacques Duval.
He turned it over and read the handwriting on the back.
You will do me the pleasure of meeting me tomorrow at dawn ashore from Bayou Marguerite. I shall furnish both pistols and coffee. Should you lack funeral funds, my lawyer will arrange everything.
The two shabby individuals were both very amused because Smoke was amused. But now their curiosity got the better of them.
Who is Jacques Duval?
Smoke turned a withering stare of scorn upon him.
If you would keep your nose out of whiskey glass, you might know something. Jacques Duval is the greatest duelist in New Orleans. Look at him wrong, and he sends a challenge and kills his man. Who is Jacques Duval?
He mimicked in disgust.
You know him?
Said Eddie, pop-eyed.
Know him? After all the time I put in New Orleans, I was the only guy he wouldn't challenge.
What's he look like?
Tall, shallow-faced guy. Must be about 40 now. Hasn't got an ounce of mercy in him. Hell with the ladies. Sleeps with a pistol in one hand and a rapier in the other. Husbands down in New Orleans always knock when they come home late. That's Jacques Duval for you. No wonder this kid was running away.
The doors groaned as they swung inward, and the men at the bar whipped about to identify the newcomer. He was a stoutish man in gray tweeds, but for all his squat bulk, there was a furtiveness in his flushed face. His personality was a cross between an ox and a rabbit. Smoke grinned.
Howdy, Considine.
Hello, Smoke.
Said Considine, glancing about the lobby as though expecting to turn up a rattlesnake.
the buzzards assemble.
I heard the new owner of the Rock and Tea was in town.
Said Considine carelessly. Smoke chuckled.
Yeah. Now, you wouldn't be getting any fancy ideas, would you, Considine? A deal's a deal, unless you want to get buried.
Considine quaked.
Oh, I didn't mean nothing, Smoke. I'm willing to play the game. IXL is getting some impatient, but what they don't know can't hurt them. And as long as I'm agenting for them,
You'll cut all the throats in sight.
Finished Smoke with an ugly snort.
You know, I'll bet they're paying you $150,000.
120. I swear it. We'll clean up the 50,000 clear after we pay the new owner 70. But how you gonna get him to sell?
That's easy. He's a lily-livered kid. And the more I think of it,
The more you drink.
Amended Lush.
the more I think of it, the less reason I see for handing 70,000 over to the little yahoo.
You ain't gonna kill him.
Said Considine with a start.
Nah. But if he gets stubborn, he'll wish he was dead. Might see the deal through by tomorrow.
Maybe he'll light out like Bab Thompson did.
Yeah? Huh. A man can't light out without a horse, can he?
You mean you'll steal his bronc? Hell, Smoke, that's gone too far. They don't like horse stealing around here.
Now, who's a thief?
Challenged Smoke, hand darting to his gun. Considine blanched.
I didn't mean nothing.
Smoke relaxed.
You can fix a horse so we can't run.
Not me.
Yeah, Eddie here is an expert. Nah, see, our little friend ain't leaving town until we got what we want.
He took another drink.
And the more I think about it, the less reason I see for him to leave town at all. Maybe he'd squawk up to the land office or the federal marshal or somebody. Yeah, maybe. I think that would be a good idea.
Not murder.
Not murder.
Mimicked Smoke.
Look, we're all in this together. What's a corpse more or less between friends?
Considine drifted toward the door. Nobody noticed his going, and he went gently for fear they would. When he got out in the street, he quickened his stride, approaching the livery stable. When he reached the door, he stopped. Only the newcomer was inside, though there were several horses in the place, among them Smoke Lassiter's buckskin. When his eyes became accustomed to the dimness, Considine could see the stranger more clearly. It startled him to find a man so young, so seemingly untouched by wind and sun. He was about to approach and speak when the Rocking T's new owner spoke instead, but not to Considine. Delaney was sitting on the top of the stall division, looking at Stardust, who contentedly munched his oats.
You haven't got so much farther to go.
Said Delaney in his quiet drawl.
It's all going to be different now. Did I ever tell you that one about the longest road? There's peace in every sunset, be it scarlet, gray, or gold.
Poetry.
Whispered the shocked Considine to himself.
Saying poetry to a horse?
It unnerved him.
Hey!
Delaney turned without a sound and looked at Considine.
I come out to see you. Listen, you don't want the Rockin' Tea, kid. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you $50,000 for the spread in case you'll sign the papers in the next half hour, giving us both time to leave town.
$50,000? Mister, I paid $60,000 for it, and Mr. Thompson convinced me that it was worth $150,000.
Did he tell you why he left town?
Why, no. He said something about his health being better in New Orleans.
I'll say it is. Bab Thompson don't dare show his face around here on account of Smoke Lassiter.
Who?
Smoke Lassiter. He's bad. He's killed a dozen men. If you sign up quick, I'll draw the cash from the bank and we can burn trail before he gets wise.
I don't understand.
Well, you'll understand, all right. You'll make yourself. Why the hell do you think Bab Thompson sold the Rockin' Tea at such a loss? Where there's a bargain like that, there's usually a rattlesnake in the package. Come on, kid. Get smart and unload.
I see. I thought... Look, mister, I can't drop $10,000 like that. I can't.
You'd better drop 10,000 before you drop 60 and your life in the bargain.
Delaney sat very still. At last he said,
You don't understand.
There was misery in his voice, and Considine was touched. There was something so graceful, even pretty about this kid.
Look, it ain't too bad. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make it your 60,000 back again. You can light out with clean hands.
The kid thought about it for a long time, while Considine nervously watched the door.
No, it isn't right. I told her I'd see it through this time. I'm not going to run away again.
Again?
You don't understand. I left New Orleans because Forget it. No, I've got to see this through, mister. And besides, there isn't anybody going to kill me. Why should they want to?
I give up. But I'll give you this warning. Don't go out to the Rockin' Tea tonight. Stay in town until you know what you face.
He went away and left Delaney in a very thoughtful mood. After a long time, Delaney slid off the stall boards and gently pulled his pony's nose out of the oats. Stardust, so named because of the silver flecks on his forehead, looked wonderingly at his master, and he was presently more puzzled than ever. Delaney walked silently out of the stable. He did not want to go back to the hotel. Slowly, he strolled out from the town, wandering along the lanes of sage. A rattlesnake whirred somewhere at hand, and he started. Carefully, he walked far around it. The heat of the day was growing less, and the sun was sinking to turn the town and plain, done by day, into a glowing canvas of pleasant colors. Delaney climbed a knoll and looked gratefully into the west, the wind gentle and cool against his face. He sat down, drinking in the splendor, soothed by the immensity of the endless plain beneath the vast, inverted paint pot of the sky. Unthinkingly, he snipped a wildflower and ran the stem through his shirt button. It was a long way back. He hadn't realized he had come so far, and it was very black before he reached the town. He found a place in a restaurant and sat with his back to the wall, eyeing the door as he ate. When he had finished, he drifted back to the silver dollar, which had come to life with the death of the sun. Eddie slipped out of the restaurant behind him and hastened to the adobe hut where Smoke Lassiter lived. He emerged a moment later with the gunman. Smoke buckled on his belts and tied down his guns.
You say he had a flower in his shirt?
Yeah. His manners was enough to kill you off. Dainty as a gal.
Smoke laughed again as Eddie pantomimed Delaney's actions. They strode toward the silver dollar. Outside, Smoke stopped.
You spotted his hoss this afternoon?
Yeah.
Here's a knife.
Okay.
Eddie drifted into the yellow patch street. Smoke looked after him for a moment and then went into the silver dollar. The tables, which had been covered against the dust that afternoon, were now full, and the kerosene lamps threw down their light into piles of chips and silver. The place was a beehive of hope and despair. One table was empty of gamblers, and the kid had seated himself there to play a lonely game of solitaire. His fingers were clumsy with the cards. Smoke glanced around the saloon and saw the town marshal. He frowned for a moment and then grunted under the impact of an idea.
Hello, youngster.
Delaney glanced up and said nothing.
I'm Smoke Lassiter. I'm sort of a welcoming committee of one around Faro, and I sure hates to see a guy sitting by his lonesome playing solitaire. That's a sheepherder's game.
Delaney still said nothing. Smoke eased into the opposite chair, and Slewfoot appeared from nowhere to take another.
Would you mind a game of stud?
Delaney hesitated. But there was something very compelling about Lassiter. Delaney swallowed hard.
I wouldn't mind.
Smoke relaxed. He called for a new deck, and Lush Wilson hobbled across the room with it. Lush looked at Delaney. He seemed about to say something, but thought better of it when he caught Smoke's abruptly dangerous eye. Smoke broke the seal and began to shuffle.
We play a pretty steep game here. Blue's a quarter.
I guess that's all right.
Said Delaney, producing a double eagle. Smoke expanded even more. He dealt with the quick practice of a gambler, and it was strange in view of his thick-fingered hands. One by one, the cards slapped down. The pot was about $10 when the kid turned up 3 jacks to beat Lassiter's 2 queens. Slewfoot folded his hand quietly. Delaney appeared to take heart as he stacked the pot before him. Smoke grinned and winked covertly at Lush Wilson. Wilson walked away, disgusted. The next deal was Delaney's. He was slow but precise, and the cards made no sound whatever as he passed them around. The pot got up to $8. Delaney had a pair showing. So did Smoke. But Smoke hastily folded up, and Slewfoot, starting to get interested and having a visible straight, gave a grunt of pain and looked at Smoke with grieved eyes. Slewfoot folded up.
Looks like your lucky night.
Yes, I'm pretty lucky at cards.
That's so.
Yes, I won $100 one night.
Said Delaney, expanding a little.
$100. Now think of that. Huh. I bet your friends were sore.
They didn't like it very much.
Said the kid, more expansive than ever. Lush had come back, and Smoke gave him a grin. For the next hour, the dollars persisted in stacking up before Delaney. And the more he won, naturally, the more he wanted to bet. He had $208, and the sight of it before him was heady.
Let's up the limit?
Smoke scowled.
With your luck? Huh.
Well, you might have a chance to get it back.
All right. Lush, lend me 500, will you? I've got to get that 200 back.
Lush produced the money from his safe. The game went smoothly on, and soon the 500, in addition to the 208, were piled brightly before Delaney. Slewfoot had long dropped out. The game was beginning to attract attention. Smoke was looking dark. He made his bet savagely. He called for another 500. Midway through his last stack of blues, Smoke looked sullenly at the kid's possible flush. He himself had a visible pair of aces. It took him a long time to make his decision. Finally, he folded up. The gallery looked surprised. Smoke wasn't showing much courage in this game. In fact, he was playing very horrible stud. But Delaney's eyes were shining, and though he had not said a word, the pile before him made him radiate confidence. The limit was upped again. Hour after hour it went on. Again and again, Smoke drew heavily on Lush Wilson and finally resorted to countersigned IOUs, which Delaney was only too glad to accept. The gallery was now 4 deep. $500 pots were beginning to be more and more frequent. Delaney looked drunk, though he had not touched a drop, refusing it politely. The dollars made him reckless. It was near morning when the kid counted up his IOUs before him, stopping the game for a moment.
Why, there's $30,000 here.
I'm good for it. Look, I've got a spread worth twice that.
The gallery was still. Lush looked uncomfortable under Smoke's compelling glare.
Yeah, he's good for him. I back him up. I signed, didn't I?
Oh, I wasn't questioning anyone.
Play cards.
Growled Smoke, his eyes red-rimmed.
Give me a drink, Lush.
It was Smoke's deal. With the final card, there was a $1,000 pot. The kid had a pair of jacks showing. Smoke had a possible straight. But Smoke had been plunging for a long, long time. The kid was used to his empty bluffs.
Make it 1,000. I'll draw short.
1,000 and another 1,000.
Here's yours, and I'm drawing mine.
Call.
Said Delaney, thrusting out an IOU. Smoke had his filler. That was the first big pot Delaney had lost. It did not bother him. Nothing bothered him the next many hands until he suddenly realized that he was out of IOUs and back to $1,200 in cash. He looked quietly at that shrunken stack. But he was not bothered too much even then, and he had heard of a thing called sportsmanship. He had to give Smoke his chance. The $1,200 vanished, but Delaney's fever had not. It was growing late, or rather, very early. Big bets had become such a habit that the kid lost $5,000 on the next pot until Smoke was sure of his game now. In a moment, he would get the rocking tea in a perfectly legal way. He had built his structure nicely. But when he reached out to take that $5,000 pot on the strength of 3 aces, one buried after his deal, Delaney made a motion to stop him.
Just a minute.
Said the kid wonderingly.
You got the ace of spades against my 3 kings showing.
What's wrong with that?
Quietly, the kid turned over his own hole card. It was the ace of spades. Smoke was quick. He lunged to his feet.
Why, you dirty little rat, trying to welch on that pot by sliding in a card. The last man that called me cheat was planted.
The crowd swept back from behind Delaney. Smoke, driven to save his face, was a towering fury. Deliberately, he smashed Delaney across the mouth. The kid went backwards out of his chair. He did not get up. Holding a hand across his bloodied lips, he watched Smoke with frightened eyes. Smoke strode around the table.
Get up, you pup.
Delaney shook his head. Smoke planted a kick in his ribs.
Get up.
Delaney snaked back.
No.
There's only one way to settle this.
Said Smoke, dragging the kid to his feet by his silk shirt front.
That's guns.
No.
Take him into the back room and get him a Texas.
Said Smoke to Lush. Lush dragged Delaney away. There was something degrading in watching a man break down and quit the way Delaney had done. Smoke was very big about it. Before the kid had gone 2 steps, Smoke picked up the bills from the table and thrust them contemptuously at the kid. Delaney took them. In the back room of the salon, Lush broke out a gun in the holster. Delaney had caved into himself in a chair. He looked sick. Lush, his contempt very real, thrust the belt at Delaney.
Put it on.
Delaney pushed it away.
You can't run. You ain't got no hoss.
The kid stiffened.
What do you mean?
The bronc was hamstrung hours ago.
Hamstrung? Stardust?
Yeah.
Delaney caved into himself again and hid his face. His shoulders trembled and a sob caught in his throat. Lush Wilson's lip curled. He shoved the gun at Delaney again.
If you're too yellow to even get mad about that, you better walk out there and die like a man anyhow. You'd be better off.
Considine came in. He looked driven.
Listen, Delaney, I can call this off.
Can you?
Quivered the kid with sudden hope.
Yeah, you sign over the rock and tea on these papers here. I got them out of your saddlebags, and I'll see that Smoke leaves you alone.
The kid stared at the papers.
No. I can't do that.
Better to be broke than dead. Even killers don't stand any chance against Smoke Lassiter.
I can't. You don't understand. $65,000.
Sign.
Said Considine, pushing a pen at him. Suddenly, Delaney's face was still. There was no hope anywhere in him. He looked long at the pen and then reached out for the gun, which Lush Wilson still held. Wilson and Considine exchanged a wondering glance. Delaney stood up shakily. He clumsily buckled the belt about him.
Look here, kid. There ain't any reason to die. Just sign.
You don't understand. If I die, the $65,000 goes to...
Your mother?
Finished Wilson. The kid finished fastening the gun belt.
I'll meet him. I can't do anything else. Go tell him I'll meet him in the street.
The first pearl of dawn was in the sky, graying the dirty window of the back room. Considine went out. Presently, Smoke came back.
Now look here, kid. If you'll sign, I'll call it off.
I can't.
Said Delaney miserably.
You know what happens to anybody that got to stand up to me? You better sign, kid.
No.
shuddered Delaney. He would not say more than that, no matter how much they pounded him. At long last, Smoke lost his temper.
Damn you for a fool. By God, I'll blow you apart. Come on outside.
Considine tried to stay Lassiter, but Delaney's obstinacy had taken the gunman past reason. Lush Wilson pushed Delaney before him. It was light in the street with the sun but a few minutes above the rim. The town had heard, and the town had collected along the walks. Head down, eyes upon the dusty street, the kid shuffled to its center. Smoke, jaw tight set and eyes blazing, confronted him.
This is a joke on you.
Delaney glanced up. Smoke pulled the card from his pocket and shoved it under the kid's nose.
Running away never helped none. You walked into the same thing all over again.
Delaney didn't care for the gunman's philosophy.
No,
He said miserably.
it's no good to run away.
Smoke shoved the card back into his pocket.
Yeah, the joke's on you, Lush. We'll do this in style. You count 20 paces, and on your word fire, we'll turn and shoot.
Lush nodded. Delaney and Smoke stood back to back in the dusty street. The sun was to be behind Smoke and in Delaney's eyes. Delaney did not protest. He stood very still.
1,
Said Lush, and the two men took the pace.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Delaney was walking like an animated doll.
11, 12, 13, 14,
The town watched as though hypnotized.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
The two men stood still, facing away from each other, 40 paces of bright dawn air between them.
5.
Shouted Lush. Delaney did an about-face. Smoke whirled, drawing as he turned. He started the down chop with his Texas. Delaney was standing very straight. He held his revolver out from his shoulder, sighting it. The two reports were a second apart. White smoke swirled. Suddenly Lush gasped. Smoke Lassiter's bullet had been blasted into the sky. Smoke screamed a curse and slashed down again. Delaney fired a second time, and again Lassiter's shot went straight up. Delaney's next 4 bullets went in a blur. Lassiter lost his hat. He grabbed for his belt, but it came apart in his hands, shot through on each side. He snatched again in agony at his right ear. He stood there, shaking. His right hand was a mass of blood, and there was a clean hole in the ear.
Now, get out of town.
Drawled Delaney, reloading calmly just as though Lassiter had forgotten all about fighting. Lassiter had. He looked at Delaney through the bright dawn. Suddenly, he saw that he was alive. That was enough for Lassiter. He knew at last what he was up against. He sprinted for the livery table as fast as his legs could carry him. He came out in an instant, eyes dilated.
My horse is dead.
Eddie dived out of sight.
If somebody killed your horse because it happened to be in my horse's stall, then walk.
Smoke turned, not intending to wait for a second invitation. But he had not heard the oncoming roar of the stage, and it almost ran him down. He leaped aside, and then a face in the window caught and held his attention as though he had seen a ghost. The stage stopped, and out leaped Bab Thompson of the Rocking Tea.
By God, son, you sure wasn't wasting any time.
Delaney grinned as he shook the hand. All Pharaoh stayed in their tracks, gaping in wonder. This was all wrong. Old Bab Thompson had been run out of the country and wouldn't ever have the nerve to come back. But old Bab wasn't the kind of guy to pick up with a kid like Delaney. But Delaney was all wrong, too. He had stood up there and shot with an accuracy greater than anyone had ever seen in Faro, had stood up against Smoke Lassiter without blinking an eye. Smoke was still up the street, bewildered at Bab's return in connection with this lead-slinging kid. Old Bab turned and greeted the men who lined the street.
Gents, I want you to meet my pal Jacques Duvall, the greatest duelist New Orleans ever produced. He come here to do me a favor, and sure he done it.
And now Smoke Lassiter really did gape. The town, staring with respect and awe at Delaney, abruptly turned their attention to Smoke. And then the enormity of the practical joke came home to them. And with one great gust of laughter, they jarred Lassiter to his shred of a soul. Smoke turned. He made haste to get beyond the range of that bellow. But no matter how far he ran, he could still hear it behind him. And for the next 20 years, Smoke Lassiter would still be listening to it.